Hi, I'm Brent May, the Marketing Product Owner at cPanel. If you're familiar with Scrum for software development, you're probably familiar with the term Product Owner, but I'm going to tell you what a Marketing Product Owner is and how cPanel has adopted the Agile methodology for our marketing department, and specifically why Agile is not just for development anymore. Hopefully you'll take away from this some things that we learned when we adapted Agile for our marketing team, and you can apply those to your own marketing teams as well. So let's start out by taking a look at kind of how some marketing teams are structured, specifically in the web hosting industry that I've noticed. A lot of times you'll have like your CMO, VP position, director level position, sometimes some mid-level managers, and then you've got everybody else who's doing the work. A lot of times you have your designers, your developers, copywriters, analysts, SEO people. You've got all these people, and there's not really a clear chain of command or who does what, who's on first, really. So there's a lot of, is this person who I go to for this, or do I ask the VP, do I ask the director, or is this manager in charge of SEO? So there's a lot of confusion with that. On the flip side, the other thing we see a lot of times in marketing departments in web hosting is you've got one person doing everything. So you've got this small web hosting shop, and then you also have the person who either started the business or they've been fortunate enough to hire one person for marketing. So that person's your CMO, VP, marketing manager, director, and everybody else at the same time. So looking at the state of marketing right now, whether you have a huge team or a small team, we've got all these tools available to us. We've got different CMS, email service providers, email programs, CRMs like Salesforce, marketing automation tools like HubSpot, Marketo, Simplecast. I mean, we have a ton of tools available, but the thing about that is when it comes to marketing, we're still pretty shitty at it. So what exactly is Agile marketing? If you're familiar with Scrum and Agile for software development, Agile marketing is basically the same thing, except you take the principles of Scrum and apply it to a business operations environment. It's really a self-organizing methodology for marketing teams to work, and the biggest thing is that it provides maximum value to the user, and this is my favorite thing about Scrum. So self-admittedly, when we kind of got the information that we were gonna try out Scrum with our marketing team here at cPanel, I was really hesitant about it, and we had some initial excitement and trepidation at the same time. We went through a boot camp. We had some trainers come into the office. Kind of going into it, we had that initial excitement, but we were still on the fence about how is this really going to work? We're so used to working in a traditional marketing environment. How's this going to work for us? Once we had about 6 to 8 months under our belt, we really started to see how it impacted our work and how it really let us focus more on the actual user and the people that were getting value from our marketing campaigns and how we were marketing the product, our services. So really, I was a skeptic at first, but after 6 to 8 months, I'm a complete convert, and I would have a hard time working in a marketing environment that wasn't Agile. So there's quite a few benefits to working in an Agile marketing environment. Some of the benefits that I want to highlight are prioritization. By taking a look at your work in an Agile framework, it allows you to prioritize what's most important and what has the highest business value. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute, how you prioritize with a backlog. Transparency is another huge benefit in an Agile environment. Not only is the work transparent to the team, who's doing what, it's also transparent to the company. The way we do it here is we make our project board available to everyone in the company so that anytime anyone, stakeholders, anybody within cPanel can come and see what the marketing team is working on during any given period. It's also very predictable. We'll talk about how you use data and metrics later in the presentation, but the way you use it in an Agile environment, it makes the work you do much more predictable than if, say, you spend 6 to 9 months on a huge campaign and you're $10,000, $100,000 deep in this campaign. Agile marketing kind of takes away that fear of launching a big bang campaign and focusing on small deliverables that are experimental and let you kind of predict the results a little bit better in the beginning. And there's also a level of accountability with Agile marketing, which is super important because it not only holds you accountable to the user, to your customers, it also holds you accountable to your team. So when you look at the team structure, you'll see how Agile really makes each person accountable. If this person doesn't finish the work, you either succeed or fail as a team. So if one person doesn't finish, that person doesn't take the brunt of that, but the team's able to say, hey, next time, this is what we need to work on because you may have let us, let the team down this time. So it really, that transparency makes the accountability part much easier. Looking at who's doing Agile marketing, it's still probably, I would say, in the early stages, and you see a lot of technology companies like R1Soft, Cisco, the marketing automation tools like Marketo and HubSpot, they're all doing variations of Agile marketing right now, and that's kind of looking at the way we used Agile for software development was one of the biggest reasons that cPanel adopted Agile for marketing. A lot of the companies that are doing it also use Agile or Scrum for their software development. So it made a lot more sense to kind of get their whole team or all their project teams and business operations teams on board with the same framework. Looking at the team structure for Agile, it's very similar to a product Scrum team. So you have a product owner, which is the role I fill here at cPanel, a Scrum Master, and then you have your team members. In an Agile environment, it's ideal to have somewhere between 5 to 9 people on any given Scrum team. 7 is kind of that magic number that people say is ideal, but there's a little wiggle room with that. On this structure, the product owner is the person that's responsible for the prioritization of the backlog or the project work that you're going to be doing. The Scrum Master, similar to a product development team, that person's responsible for making sure that the process is being followed and that the team is holding up their end of the agreements and following the Agile process and making sure that if there are roadblocks or impediments, if there's stuff that they're waiting on that they can't get from external people, that Scrum Master is the person that goes out and says, hey guys, we're waiting on this so our team can finish what we've promised our stakeholders. Can you get that to us? That way the team's not bogged down with the politics and the back and forth of trying to get everything they need to do the work. And this lets them just focus on the deliverables and getting their work done. Looking at the process itself, so the biggest thing is you start with your product backlog or your project backlog, depending on what you call it. What that is, that's really just a huge list of projects that you're working on or your wish list of items, things that you need to get accomplished as a team. This is developed usually with input from the stakeholders. They're the ones that tell you, they kind of dictate the business value and say, this is the most important thing to our company, or these are our company's business objectives. Your work needs to, of course, feed into those objectives, and it needs to make sure that it's aligned with what your company's trying to achieve. So your product backlog is it can be, not a 1-year marketing plan, not a 15-month, 16-month, it can be, 3 years out. There's really no timeline with how long a backlog can be. Where you break it down is when you actually get into your sprint planning, which is the next step. You take what's at the top of your backlog because you've prioritized the work based on business value, and the team agrees on what they feel like they can commit to in your sprint cycle. So if they say, we feel like we can commit to this much work based on what we know we're capable of, you would pull the top 4 projects off the backlog after you've sized them, knowing that this is what we feel comfortable committing to in a 2 to 4 week sprint cycle or whatever you determine that to be. Once you get past your sprint planning and your sprint backlog, that's what you do during the sprint cycle. Typically these are 2 to 4 weeks, and at the end of that you have a demo where you show all the work that you just completed to your stakeholders. At this time your stakeholders can give you feedback and say, this is great, here's what I would change, this doesn't really meet the objectives, or this doesn't, we've got feedback here. This is a good time for the team to get that input, and you don't get 6 months down the road on a project or have a website ready to launch because you've shown it every 2 weeks or so. And when you get to the wireframe phase, the stakeholders can say, okay, I like the layout of this, I like the structure of the page, but I feel like the call to action isn't strong enough. So then, based on the expertise of the team, you can go back and tweak it at that point so that for your next sprint demo, after that next sprint cycle, you're not you haven't launched this website. You're not 6 months into this project. You've made these incremental changes and you've got a system to get this done instead of just hoping for a meeting somewhere along the line during the project. Taking a look at the web hosting industry, a lot of times you'll see that it's very similar. A lot of people focus on price first. This percentage of a discount, this month, this amount per month. It's all about pricing. What I like about Agile is that it takes away that here's what we think we should do, and really it puts the customer first. This is my favorite thing about Agile marketing, and this is really what sold me on it because it changed the way we looked at our projects here at cPanel. You put the customer first in everything you do, and one way you do that is with a user story. So everything that we do in our product backlog is written as a user story in the format of, as a blank, I need to do some action or take some action so that I can achieve a certain result. So a good example of this for maybe a web hosting company would be, as a small business owner, I want to launch a website so that I can make money for my company. So you're not looking at the project of, as a web hosting company, I need to promote this monthly plan so that we can sell more. It's not about you, it's about the customer. Who are you trying to get to buy your product or service? So looking at it, as a small business owner, I want to launch a website so I can make money. If you've done your research and you know who your customers are and you know who your buyer personas are and you know that they're not a technical crowd, the most important thing to this customer is that they're able to launch a website. So in this example, this is a non-technical customer who's a small business owner, and the most important thing is that they can get their e-commerce site up and running so they can start making money for their business. Price isn't the motivator here, it's functionality, it's the ability to just get this website online quickly. So looking at that helps you shape how you're going to manage this project and how you're going to create content and market this to that specific persona. Another good thing about Agile is that it allows for rapid change. When you look at your sprint cycle, typically they're 2 to 4 weeks, but it can vary depending on what the team is comfortable with. When we first started, we tried a 3-week sprint. We've experimented with short 1-week sprints. What we found for us is that 2 weeks works the best because what we're able to do is we get a lot done in that 2-week period. We're able to push that out there, find out how it's performing, and then make changes as needed or move on to the next project in a short amount of time. So for us here at cPanel in the marketing department, a 2-week sprint has been perfect. For your team, it really just depends on the needs of your team and what works for you guys. It also relies on data and metrics. This is another really important part where if you look at how your campaigns are performing and you say, here's what we launched in a 2-week period. The next 2 weeks, we're going to move on to another project, but during that time, we're going to analyze and look at how what we launched in the previous sprint performed. When you get to planning for the next one, you can say, okay, these are the benchmarks that we set. This is where we thought we would be with that project. If it's not performing the way you thought it should or the way you had hoped for based on what you knew at the time, this is where you get to go back and you've launched, you've measured, and now you can iterate. You can pull that story back in, figure out what didn't work from what you launched, redo it. So you've got 2 weeks worth of work into this, you've measured it for 2 weeks, 2 weeks later, it didn't perform like you wanted, pull it back in and retool it, figure out what you've learned, use the information that you have, figure out what you've learned, and then retool it. 2 weeks later, you've launched it again. Now if it performs the way you want, perfect. You've spent a month on this and you've got a campaign that's performing the way you needed it to. If not, you just make these small changes. You keep experimenting with things that work and you're not spending a year on this campaign that you've spent thousands of dollars researching and hoping for the best. With this, it's short experiments that you can change quickly. They're focused on the customer. You've got measurement right at your fingertips and you can make these changes. So if you wrap it all up at the heart of it, really it's about putting that customer first with a user story, using that sprint cycle and the whole methodology just to launch, measure, and iterate, which is the most important thing, and this is the reason it works for business operations, and then your desired outcome. If you follow these steps, you're going to get to your desired outcome quickly. You fail and you fail fast if you fail at all. If not, you get there a lot quicker than you would with the traditional marketing environment. I'm more than happy to talk about Agile marketing. Any questions you have, cPanel related, Agile marketing related, email me, stephen.may@cpanel.com. You can ask me on Twitter at StephenBrentMay. My LinkedIn profile's here. More than happy to talk about this. Thanks.